call the meeting of the Warners Pond Task Force Subcommittee on Dam Removal to order on September 19th, 7:03 p.m. Present are currently Malcolm Bryant, Jeff Collins, Vicky Alani, and Sven Weber, myself. First order on the agenda is approval of the previous minutes. Any comments on the previous minutes?
Nope.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So all in favor, unanimously approved.
Okay, I'll send those up to the coordinating team or directly to Toby and Rachel.
Okay. Also see here invitation to public comment, public input. There is
Here's Liz.
Liz joining, so let's see until we see her video and her audio coming. Liz?
Hey.
There you are.
Liz.
Okay, we just started and approved the minutes. So with that, just for the records, Liz just joined, so we have a full subcommittee present.
And who is anyone volunteering?
I'm
to take
doing
minutes?
them.
Great, thank
Okay,
you.
great.
Okay. Now, just invitation to public comments. Again, please keep comments to 2 minutes. There will be another chance for comments at the end of the meeting. So do we have someone? Tracy, please, when you start, your full name and address for the records.
It's Dana Feldwig at 343 Commonwealth Avenue. I just wanted to comment on the past few months and summer, and we've all sort of lived through a typical summer, I think, when it's hot and dry. And if you walk along the upper parts of Neshoba Brook, or you walk along Fort Pond Brook, the water level is so low. The only places it's high really is where the beavers have made a little dam so that they can get water. And I just want to think back to the original grid that EA made and how they said there'd be increased recreation for people if we took the dam down and did nothing more. And I just don't think that that is accurate. So that's what I wanted to say. I'd like to stop reiterating how we're going to have great recreation. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have no one else from the public. So we can go to the next item on the agenda, discussion and feedback from the presentation on September 10th. So I was not there. So perhaps kind of it's also a chance by you kind of doing the discussion in the group that I can catch up in what was discussed and what the outcome was of the presentation.
Yeah, Jeff, you wanna go?
Sure, so I had taken some of our graphics and some of the photographs we had shared at previous working group sessions and shared those. I still need to assemble those into a slideshow. I'm kind of transitioning to a new computer and I don't have a good slide making package. So anyways, I just like forwarded through a series of images, but I need to package those up for Toby. And we shared our thinking about the sort of a simple dam removal, scenario 1, dam removal with amenities, scenario 2, and scenario 3, all those amenities plus some heavy equipment work, dredging to ensure the channel aligns where we would prefer and ensure the depth of the deep pool. So we asked for feedback, and some of the notes I have on feedback include some specific things, like David was very concerned that the scouts have not only access to the water, but for their purposes, I don't know what we'd call it, robust access for a lot of people with a canoe trailer to turn around, and a lot of, sort of a big group to mobilize and get towards the water. So that was something that was important to hear. Malcolm, you reiterated the point. I'm sorry if we didn't have this from you, if you brought it up at a previous meeting, but raised the opportunity of interpretive panels at the Pocket Park or in other places about the industrial history.
Yeah, that was Liz's idea originally, but
yeah, so that's a good one, and I've got that captured here. I have a note that Delia and others did, but Delia commented that she liked the idea of a loop trail that sort of circumnavigated the pond/wetland, but she suggested that we, in the cornfields, make the trail down the middle of the existing sort of dirt road in the middle of the cornfields rather than hugging the wetland edge. She said anytime you're looking to permit a new trail, the commission has to ask what alternatives you've looked at and have you minimized impact to the resource. And she said since there's an existing trail a couple 100 feet to the west, the commissioners could reasonably say, why aren't you just using that? So that was one note Delia had, and that's just getting down to sort of the southern end of the cornfields, and then it's all speculative right now, but the idea of a sort of a bridge getting down to the peninsula and Wallsbrook Road, folks generally like that idea, as complicated and expensive as that might be. We talked about what do folks think of. We've got 3 scenarios now. What would represent progress? I thought Bill Kameza summarized several comments well, saying, why don't you sort of show it all and then prioritize, put costs on it and prioritize what you want. And then we could, in theory, go as far as, the financial element.
Well, I got something a little different, Jeff, on that one from Bill. I think what I heard from him was that he didn't think that just removing the dam was going to work because it wouldn't meet the criteria of a bunch of things on our list, but he did want us to list the adverse impacts of just doing that. He said, if you remove the dam, you should list the adverse impacts of that scenario, which is, we lose access from Commonwealth Avenue, we wouldn't have access from Giroux Park, we wouldn't, the deep pond would be in jeopardy, whatever it is, we would list the adverse impacts of just removing the dam. And, like Anna was mentioning that we might not have waterways for a month and a half or 2 months of the year, whatever it's going to be, we should list those impacts. And then he said he thought that the other 2 schemes were more likely, and he wanted us to kind of go through the Envision Concord criteria of those 2 schemes so that we could kind of help start to rate.
Yeah, I think that you're both sort of saying the same thing. I think it was sort of like prioritizing, and part of the prioritizing is going to be like, what are the adverse effects if we don't do this thing? How does this thing, like, I think it's all kind of similar, but I think Vicky you hit on some of the things that we need to make sure as we go through a kind of a prioritization exercise. Like, we need to hit on what are the cons if we don't do this? How does this fit into,
Yep.
Sorry,
Yep.
Yeah, that's okay. Are you all set, Jeff? Is there more?
No, thank you for that summary. And I think between Bill and Mark Howell's comments, those were good, that look at what might be missing in the scenario of dam removal and how we're going to mitigate that. As you said, Vicky, what would be the impacts and how these suggestions
I
might
hate
be
to put this on you. Would somebody be able to summarize Mark's comments? Because
Yes.
either something was wrong with my headphones or he was mumbling, but I couldn't understand what he was saying.
Well, what I got from Mark was, so I guess it was Bill versus Mark. So I have two lists here. Mark said, number 1, the scheme where you were just remove the dam doesn't seem feasible. So list the adverse impacts of doing that scheme. That was his terminology.
Okay.
So list the adverse impacts of that scheme. Number 2, the full scheme seems to mitigate and offset a lot of the adverse impacts. So list how I think this is what Liz, you're getting at. How does doing more mitigate or offset some of those adverse impacts? And how that's why you got here, because you saw the adverse impacts and you're trying to solve for them. And then he wanted to see the ideas that we set aside, just so that we capture it somewhere. If there was some idea that we said, like the boardwalk all the way inside, maybe it's like the boardwalk within the 100-foot buffer all the way around. We talked about it and we set it
Yep.
aside. So just capture it in a list somewhere. Then Delia said to go through the farm field. And then he also said you might have to add the fish passage to one of these schemes. That's what I got from Mark.
So why do we need a fish passage if there's no
If
dam?
there's no dam.
Well, if there's no dam and it's only 4 to 6 inches in, June, July, and August, you might need a way for the fish to actually get into the.
It's a natural,
Oh, wait.
that's what natural brooks
But
are.
we're supposed to be solving for fish passage, right? That was one of the criteria for why we're doing this, is that fish can't get into Warner's Pond today.
But I don't think you're solving it for times that they wouldn't be going there naturally.
No.
I
Yeah,
think you're solving
exactly.
it for when
Okay, so
they're.
then we should write that down.
Yeah, I think we should
specifically,
explain like what.
no
our
fish are coming in
understanding of-
June, July, and August, so we're not gonna do that, but 9 months out of the year, we know the dam removal scheme or the second scheme or the third scheme that
Yeah.
fish will be able to pass, so we just need to confirm that they will be able to.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to kind of outline like, hey, this is what fast fish passage is like,
That's right,
during the slow water time,
Yes.
it would, yeah.
and where and when that is.
Yeah.
Then Bill asked us to move the channel to make sure we hit ComAv and the deep pool. He wanted to make sure there was a scenario where we're in the one where we're doing some dredging, that is the purpose of that, is that the channel comes within, a reasonable distance of Commonwealth Avenue. I think it's partially to try to deal with things like nobody's going to take a 8-boat trailer 150 feet on a dock to get, to the waterway. So,
So
and-
just for me, where do they take it right now? An 8-boat trailer
Commonwealth Avenue.
on that little thing?
Yeah.
Is it 8? That's room for 8-boat trailer?
Oh, yeah, no
Yeah,
problem.
plenty of room.
No problem. It's big.
Okay.
Make sure it hits the channel, make sure it hits the deep pool, because there's some question about whether that's the deepest channel section. And one scenario right now has it going between the 2 islands, which means it wouldn't even get near the deep pool. So we need to make sure that channel gets there. That was Bill. Chris said the most robust scheme seems to be the most useful. And Paul said we need to have a phased approach. He came back to that a couple of times. So.
Yeah, and I have like I also worked on phase approach. I have a sub note underneath there. It says like, how comfortable can we be with all the unknowns? So I think part of what he was saying was like, we can, if we have a phased approach, we can like, as we go, we can solve for things like, oh, the channel's much further than we thought. Like, so then if you have a phased approach, kind of.
Yeah, but I think Delia or somebody else said we may not need to do the phased approach, because
Yeah.
phased approach will probably be the most expensive. And if you let the channel go,
Yeah.
you're gonna come back later and convince people now we're going to move the channel. Like it's
Yeah.
a little, and permitting might be more difficult. And,
Yeah.
if you said you're removing a dam to make it natural, and the natural location of the channel is between the 2 islands, now what's your reasoning for coming back and dredging a channel closer to Goudreau?
Yeah.
It's a harder case to be made afterwards.
Yeah.
Right, and then I think that's all I had for us. Then everybody else, Sven went through their schemes. And where they are, and it looked like the no action, or I don't know what they're calling it, the expanded management scheme, the renew and expand or something like that, the management scheme was going to be ready to propose their scheme at our next meeting.
Oh,
They
yeah.
felt like they were ready.
Yeah, we don't need to go to the rest of the meeting. I would just,
Yeah.
this is just about our presentation. So that leaves us I'm trying to summarize this. This leaves us still with, I don't know, how many scenarios? Still those 3 scenarios, or?
I think it leaves us with like working through the criteria, which is something we've talked
Yeah,
about.
that
I
would
think
be
at
the-
this point, we and I think based on the feedback that we got, we sort of start with the more robust and see how the more robust things work. And I think that I think maybe after we go through that exercise, there has to be a good way to capture it. I just can't think of what it is yet. Hopefully, like when we come out of that, we can like, after we go through all of the criteria, it will hopefully give us a sense of like, what are the priorities, what are not the priorities? Like if we have one idea that keeps on coming up, like that's gonna be a priority. But if we have an idea that we're like, that was cool, but it came up one place, that's gonna sort of be,
So if you say the more robust, that means it's the scenario where, let's say, everything was folded in, or
yeah.
so.
I mean,
That
I'm
means
curious
is
what other people
I
think.
think that means it's just shy of getting. So first, I think what I hear is I guess we need to get the cost of stuff. Because that's key on these things. And second, we need to make that exercise. So probably next meeting, we should start trying to go through the criteria.
Although I have it in a spreadsheet, if you want to look at it. I did it as, just wrote out, I'll show you. Can I share? Do you mind if I share?
Sure.
If we wanted to try, it's not going to be easy because I've been looking at it. It's like not going to be that simple, but
Yeah, I feel like this is gonna be a several meeting.
I think
yeah.
this is a several meetings thing.
Yeah.
And I probably this is something we should be in person on a whiteboard or on paper and get stuff done.
I think that's probably true. I just wonder, well, you've got adverse effects in here, Vicky, because what I heard, I guess, two approaches. One is that we do the minimalist approach and define which of our criteria here will not be met.
Mhm.
And then we construct incremental changes, or we add things directly to the dam removal to correct all of those.
I think that's what we were saying. Yeah, that's
Yeah. But if
Yeah, so yeah.
if we start at the other end, I don't know, it feels as though it's a little hard. A little harder to backtrack to, how would, if on the Cadillac model, I'm sorry, I go back to that. My mind isn't very functional today. Then we have to sort of say, okay, well, we're meeting everything now. What would make us not meet this? It would just seem a little easier to go from, we're not meeting anything right now. What would we need to do to actually meet those?
And I think if you go that approach, you can have the list that will help with the priorities, right? So you might, I'm kind of thinking like, I'm trying to look at one of these.
Sorry, I'm just doing this so we can see it maybe more easily.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need new glasses. That's my problem.
I think this is not workable on the screen.
Yeah.
No,
So
yeah.
like, I'm just gonna grab like, I'm trying to find one that may not be, oh, well, now it's gone. I'm trying to think of a criteria that's not gonna be, very, okay, improves, maintains connectivity to town center bike trails, right? So we'd say, all right, this no act, we just took it out, we literally changed nothing, so it does not improve anything.
Mhm.
So how do we improve it? We're gonna improve it by, this idea of, connecting across Comm Ave, using that Cunny Dunn space, that would help improvement. Or like, I think we can, and then we'd have like the list of like, here are the things, and that's kind of where I was getting to, like, if we see one or two things, like a few things popping up like across the way, we know that those have to be our priorities. And then Sven, I think to your point, like then when you get the cost, you can balance like, okay, this one priority that we thought was super important is also going to be like that's going to use all the money. So is it so important that we want to use all the money for it? And that's the only thing we're going to offer? Is that
I don't know that we're doing, I don't know that we're going to pick and choose now, because the group told us they wanted us to pursue 2 and 3, right? They said, give us this criteria on options 2 and 3 and give us the impact or adverse impacts of option 1. That's what the task force asked for. We can come up with a 4th scheme if we want to after we do this, saying what we learned in doing this exercise is that we need scheme 4. I'm not sure we'll need it. but, we can do what they asked us to do.
Yeah,
First.
I didn't.
But I
feel
still
like they
still
wanted
think
us
it is.
to-
We generally, at least I was not in the room, but from the prep, we generally outlined the ideas. And if you go through the full exercise, we learn certain things.
Mhm.
And one important thing we haven't learned at all so far is the cost aspect.
Mm.
Yeah. And it's easy to come back to say, it's okay, if we do the Cadillac, that's cost X. But if we take two things out of it, that makes it more like that. So I think we have, as a task force, as a subcommittee, can always say, this is what we learned, and this is what in the end we might believe might be an outcome that is the best outcome that is, and the realistic outcome that fits in the end, the town's
Yeah.
budget. Because in the end, you can put, the danger here is we generate a Cadillac solution that is so expensive, that it's just not going to work.
Mhm.
I felt like I walked away from the meeting, sort of feeling like the task force was not really interested in the idea of like, they would just want, like, without that option too, like they wanted to hear more about the full things or nothing.
Mhm.
And then the prioritization would kind of get us to an option two, like that, what that option two should look like.
Yeah.
If we needed it, but I may have walked away with that with the wrong sort of impression. I don't know what you guys think.
I think my understanding is the same as yours, Liz. And I think that if we can do a prioritization and a costing as accurately as we can get to remedy each of the adverse impacts, we can then, if there is a finite envelope of money we can spend to address this option or any of the other options, then we can, determine what would be in and what would be left out, or suggest that with these options.
And I think then that's where like really making sure we capture what we thought is not worth it is really important. So that
Yeah.
way the task force can be like, you are wrong here. This is important.
Agreed. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we'll need feedback from the task force, but ultimately, I mean, I guess it's not our task, just the five of us, to come up with a single
No.
proposal to
It's not.
bring a finer
That's right.
set of options, a more better defined set of options with costs and priorities to the task force. And then as a big group, we decide like, okay, I think this is as
That's
far
That's right.
as this is as much as we'll want to ask the town to spend
Yeah.
for these benefits, and
Mhm.
here are the benefits,
Mhm.
so that
Yep.
as a group we're weighing.
So should we,
Right, Jeff. I don't think we're supposed to come up with the budget or the final scheme. I think what they asked us for was some way to evaluate these things so that they can understand better what's good, with the pros and cons of each scheme.
well, shouldn't it be all the way to the right, somewhere in the criteria sets the financial impact? of
It's
it?
in there. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's all the
So
things
at a
that we talked
certain
about.
point, we need to look at that.
No,
Yeah,
and we will. I think what's gonna happen is that we're gonna, as a task force, decide what to estimate. So there might, because right now, there's probably 3 schemes in our group, 3 schemes in that group, and 3 schemes in the other group. We're not going to estimate 9 schemes, because that's probably, $70,000 worth of estimating to choose 2 schemes. So I think what we're gonna ask the task force is, how many schemes are we really thinking need to be estimated? Because frankly, we could estimate the Cadillac version and find out the cost of all of the elements and then pull them out. Like if we found out the dock was $50,000, we would know the dock was 50,000. If Commonwealth Avenue was 100,000, we'd find that out. If the boardwalk was $1 million, we'd find out the boardwalk was $1 million. Whatever it is, the only way to understand the cost of those is to estimate it. So we might just estimate the full scheme so that we have all the costs broken down.
I think that makes sense. Like if we have all the costs. And then we have, yeah.
Well, we have all the ideas. I'm not sure that we actually have the costs.
Yeah,
But
I'm
we-
just
No,
wondering,
no,
where
I'm
did we
saying
get
if
the
we
cost?
estimate,
We won't have it until
Right.
the end.
Well, we can arrive.
No, I
we
think
can
there-
arrive at some
there's an
estimates.
in-between step. I think is Delia or
we do that?
others might have experience to tell us what the extension of let's say the boat access might in general typically cost, that we get an order of magnitude.
We c-
Who would have that?
For example, I don't know, Delia for that.
She keeps saying she does not have
She
that.
doesn't, but we do know that the whatever it is, the National Resource Council did have that in their initial planning, so they may have put a dollar figure to it.
But that was a dock, that
Didn't-
was a
didn't they
tiny dock.
just-
in
Didn't
its
didn't the
existing
select
location.
board, didn't the select board just approve ARPA funding for boat access from Giro Park? So there is a budget. We know, we have to look
But-
at what the number
but-
is and we know
but-
what it costs.
Yes, so as Paul said, depending on where that channel goes, so
Of
if
course.
a channel is within 10 feet of Giroux, it's one cost. If it's 100 feet from Giroux, it's another cost. If it's 200 feet from Giroux, it's a different cost. So where that channel goes changes
Okay.
that cost.
Obviously, but
Yeah.
those are things we can project.
do you think we can get
you
a
know,
sense?
Can we?
Sorry, Malcolm, please.
No,
finish.
go ahead, Liz. I was
No, I was just gonna say, do you think we can get a sense from looking at budgets from other towns that have done this recently?
yes, I do.
Of some of the amenities that
I mean,
they've
they're
had
not
before?
going to they're going to be very ballpark or
Yeah.
back of the envelope, whatever analogy you want to use, but they'll tell us whether we're looking at $50,000 or $500,000.
Yeah, and the trail stuff, that we have good numbers, or I know folks I've worked with have good numbers on that per foot,
Mhm,
at least for estimates, for boardwalks and bridges and
mhm.
trails,
Yeah.
surface trail improvements.
But I do think we need to, I think going through the exercise of looking at the criteria and picking out which of the amenities is sort of the
Okay.
first piece of that, and then the cost should be the second piece of that. I don't think we should ignore the cost. I think probably for our purposes, getting a ballpark idea to make sure we're not like presenting something wild, or if we think we're presenting something wild, we can be able to say like, this is probably wildly expensive, but we think it's important because of XYZ.
Mhm.
Okay. So that means I think we should then do the next meeting all together in person if possible and go through the exercise. Just put meat to the bones.
And then, so it sounds like Jeff, you might be able to get us some costs on boardwalk, bridge, trails,
Yeah.
right? How do we get, so what we have, other items are the boat launches, small, medium, and large, I guess. It has to be accessible, handicap accessible, boat launch, small, medium, or short, medium, and long, I guess, not large dock, but long access. And then it goes to the full amenities one, where we're adding, we're dredging some portion of the channel to get it close to promenade
I
and
think
close
that's
to the
the
road.
biggest wild card. The dredging is the biggest wild card.
Yes.
That might
And-
be worth looking at, like, I mean, and this is gonna be definitely like a very large ballpark. This is gonna be like, I don't know, maybe a football field ballpark, but looking at sort of some of the stuff that Joe Gold had talked about, like, hey, these are the ones that we just kind of take it down, let it go.
Mhm.
These are the projects that we were more heavily involved with the engineering. If we can like maybe just look at the ones that were more heavily engineered and get a sense from that,
Yeah.
how much more expensive those were. And then like, obviously it won't be like a specific cost for like a specific thing, but it'll give
What
us.
if, I'm gonna play a little bit devil's advocate, because
Please do.
I have seen estimates. And estimating is such a science and an art all at the same time. I have seen estimates and even bids, we saw them, right? How far off they can be. We can do estimating and it can be 10 times off of
Yeah.
the
Yep.
final real actual cost. So we might come back and say, the full thing is $3 million and it might actually be $9 million, which happened recently.
we,
But we can
um,
also say it's $3 million and it's $1 million. Like, we don't know.
No, that's
So-
true.
Yeah, that's why it's a
Um,
football field park.
yeah.
For lack of a,
Delia was gonna ask a dam removal contractor
Yes.
for a cost quote on this dam. We could ask her to inquire about dredging, you know,
Yeah,
300
and
feet of channel.
Isn't doing a dredging cost? Like, couldn't we just interpolate from them?
I don't
the
think
one
so
difference-
because this is it's a different setting, isn't it?
I think
I-
they get
I'm-
like they might come back with like a, you know, per cubic foot cost that we might be able to apply.
Mm.
That's
Right.
a big key point. The one
that,
thing
I mean,
though,
that's all we're interested
So that we're
in,
doing
really,
apples to
isn't it?
apples kind of.
Yes.
but we'd want to subtract out the mobilization and then, you know, all the costs if we have the dam removal. If we get a dam removal cost in this basis of design report, we're going to have the equipment on site, right? So it'll be a lot less expensive for that crew just to go up and do a little more.
Is it the
work.
same equipment though? Is it the same?
Yeah, they have excavators and
Yeah.
they would be able to answer. But
And yeah, I think talking to Joe Gold is a good idea because if my understanding is that with the not so much the deep hole, but with the course of the brook, if we point it in the right direction, then the flow of the water will continue the removal for us. You know, we don't have to excavate the entirety of the track. We just have to make sure that the water starts off going where we want it to go. So that, I mean, that's quite a different cost.
and there are other, let me just mention from experience that depending on the substrate, there are techniques to encourage the channel to
Yeah.
evolve and stay in a place, like putting basically logs on the outer bank so it
Mhm.
doesn't meander and tear up the new bank that you create.
Yeah.
Okay.
not all the manipulation would necessarily be dredging. And there might be other techniques that they're kind of throwing in there.
And then there's the
Right.
dredging of the
And
deep pond to
for the
10
deep hole.
feet, making sure it's at 10 feet. So we have
Yeah.
a
Right.
piece of the dredge.
But we
Yeah.
wouldn't again have the same problem with the dewatering and the disposal of the dredgeate, whatever it's called when you dig the stuff up, because we would have already created land around so that the dredge material could theoretically at least go onto the new wetland that we've created.
I don't think we can put it on wetland. I think that's a separate kind of a permit for
Okay.
wetlands. So
It
we
won't
would,
have,
we would- might be able to do it where the dredging group is talking about it, on the prison site, no?
That was the latest proposal was the in pond disposal. So
Yes.
creating these
it
wetland
would
shelves.
it would
Oh,
be
okay.
in pond disposal,
Okay,
and then when the pond drains, it would become part of the wetland.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. So these are all,
Okay, So let's,
ideas. We
let's,
have to memorialize all these ideas.
yeah, I think that's why we need the exercise. Yeah, so
Yeah,
let's do that
yeah.
next time. We go through every of the line items. Yeah, put it into that mega chart you started, and then document. Yeah, document is what answers or what things are open. Where are we just doing best guess guesstimates, or where are we feeling sure? So that we have to put meat on the bone. So that's the exercise next time. Otherwise, we are going in
Yeah.
circles here.
Do you
But
think
ho-
it's worth setting aside time within the meeting to like try to do some of the research of the questions that we're getting within
Yeah.
the meeting rather than, does that make
I think it's gonna take us an hour and a half or 2 hours to do.
Oh,
that.
yeah.
That's
This is gonna
long.
be a long
That's a
meeting.
I don't
long
think we can do
session.
it.
This
Um,
will that will be the most important session, I think, most likely. We have.
Just a logistics question. How are we going to go about doing this? You mentioned, okay, we meet together, we have whiteboard, markers, all sorts of things. Who are we going to, who's going to facilitate it? Because we can't just all sit around and throw stuff out.
Well,
in
I think
my
it's
opinion.
at least I think that the framework Vicky started in the end is makes sense. You just have to populate it with stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then if
Okay.
say Vicky is willing to
stab.
continue to populate that, and when we look at it on, I don't know, big screen to see, yes, it's reflecting what the group is saying,
That's right.
then that should be good. I think we are
Oh, Jeff
lost.
froze.
Jeff is frozen here, reconnecting to audio.
He has a very stoic face. He doesn't.
He's very,
Yes.
looks like he's very intent looking, listening. I didn't even bother going out to the shed today. I'm like, I'm going right to the basement. You guys have to leave me alone. No more of this buffering in.
The other thing I did hear from the group, Sven, that you may, because you missed it, was that whole idea of the Dunn Square connection and solving, some of the dangerous conditions in that intersection. Mark was very interested in that, but I think Liz, you brought up a good point. That doesn't have to be part of this project. That can be part of the town's projects, but that we advocate for it because that funding should come out of street funding, paving funding, park funding. There's a bunch of different places that really own
Then
that.
we need all your votes to get the
Absolutely.
funding for the streets. It's
Yes,
Well,
we do.
once I tell
chronically
you,
underfunded.
once we tell you how dangerous that intersection is and that, at night people could be killed there.
we
that-
have a $27 million backlog in streets repair, and
Yeah, so
Yes.
it should go on that list.
just to
If it
get
comes-
that in.
This is Malcolm, this is Paul's phase thing. If it comes in 5 years, it's phase 5 year, whatever it is.
Yeah, if you
Amazing.
postpone the 27 million 5 years, it balloons to 60 million. We made the calculation, so just get you a sense of
Yeah, sure,
the problem in Concord.
absolutely.
But it came up at
But
the
we'll have to
last town meeting.
prioritize safety of streets versus paving of safe streets. Well, I mean, this is a discussion, right? I mean,
Yeah,
we're not
yeah.
making the decisions for streets today. We're just
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
deciding on a
I like how
scheme.
you describe it, Vicky, as like, if we put in this proposal, like we become advocates for this.
That's right.
Yes,
Exactly.
we do.
I think it's for each of the ones when we get, again, I don't want to reopen this way, but once we get to the cost, they are funding sources. Yeah. So as
Yep.
we know, dam removal is most likely be funded, just the removal itself, by 80% from the state.
Mhm.
So that is a ballpark which says, okay, that is not out of the town's coffers. But other things have to come out. Others could be ARPA or whatever. I don't know. Yeah. So
Yeah, we
that's
have to figure that one out too, Sven, because what I heard was there's a long line of dam removal
know.
money too. So dam removal
No,
might have to wait
I
10
know
years to
that,
get
and it
funded
might
by the
be-
state too.
yeah, but it might also be that we say the favorite solution is X, but
That's right.
given you have to stay in line to wait
Yeah.
for the money,
That's right.
it is realized in, I don't know, in 3 years or 4 years from
That's
now.
right.
Yeah,
I
it's
think, one comment is, we've brought up the MCI site redevelopment many times. We all know that conversation will take several years, and any redevelopment will take several years. But we should also be thinking about, well, we're all thinking about the future of the Warners Pond area in the context of that, but in connectivity also, that could be an opportunity around Kenny Dunn Square, because that'll be a lot of more traffic coming back and forth on Com Ave,
Yeah.
desire for people who may live over there to connect through Kenny Dunn Square, and the need to get cars through there and people
Or
through
even
there.
pedestrians getting to the train right now, it's pretty bad.
So that could be, something to have on the wish list associated with that project.
Yeah.
okay.
One thing that will ease some of the congestion there is if the rotary actually gets fixed. And as far as I understand, that's in part related to the decisions about MCI. But there's an awful lot
Are
of
you saying the
traffic.
state's gonna
Okay.
talk to the state and fix things all at once? Malcolm, this
Okay,
is like
I
so
think-
optimistic. Are you the optimist?
I think we should not link our dam removal
Yeah,
to a
that's right.
timeline of the
No.
rotary being fixed.
Or
Oh,
link the rotary
okay.
being fixed with MCI being sold or MCI being
All right,
sold
I'm
with
suitably
Park.
chastised.
But these are things that it wouldn't make sense to put realignment of Kenny Dunn Square on our
No,
scenario, right?
no.
But as a, note to future Concordians or note to our
Yes.
future selves, this remains an issue
Mhm.
as we try to bring people to this area.
Right.
And so that goes on the long range plan that Sven has talked about.
And I think
Okay.
that's the same applies to Giroux Park, as far as I can see,
Yeah,
because
we
the
haven't put
plans,
anything onto Giroux Park and
No.
from our thing, yeah.
yeah.
How so,
Oh.
Mal?
Well, because who was it? Paul presented last week that the National Resources Commission is already putting forth plans. to do-
Recreation Department.
Sorry, Rec Department. Thank you.
Yeah.
To do the very things that we're suggesting.
Yeah.
This year, they're simply asking for enough money to be able to do the planning, but
Yeah.
they're hopeful that they'll get it done in 27, something like
Yeah,
that.
the things that we talked about, Sven, like the playground and the dock, access a viewing dock or whatever it's gonna be, and some benches, all of that is going into their plan for the recreation department, so that doesn't have to be part of ours.
Okay.
But-
So we have 7:44. So that agenda thing was going to happen till 7:40, so we have 4 minutes there. I think I get a sense on this topic, the conclusion is we're doing the big workshop
Yep.
on next time and get this done.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, so may I move then to the next agenda item? Is that
Yeah.
okay for everyone?
Indeed.
Okay, so next one is discussion of the basis of design report.
Mhm.
Which we didn't receive.
Which we have not received, right? So that's a very short
Was there
discussion.
was there any further indication is ETA, timeline, whatever?
No, we did not
I
receive
looked-
an ETA.
I look back at old emails. It said expect soon after our September 10th meeting. At the meeting, Delia said they were getting comments back to EA and expecting it back after that. So I asked Toby, I think I CC'd everybody on
Yeah.
where is that? So hopefully we'll get an update.
Mhm.
Yeah, she had said September 11th, but it looks like they still don't have it.
So what is our expectation, what we get out of that?
Well, some of our questions, I think, Sven, because we looked up other, basis of design reports that other companies have produced. It does answer some of our questions about what is the depth of the water at the end of the day? What is the location of the channel potentially? What are the edge conditions? What are the invasives in the waterway? So, those questions that we remain, even fish passage, some of them do take up the fish passage, saying this is what we expect for fish
Okay,
before and after. And so some of that stuff gets answered in that report, we're hoping.
okay,
They
I was
do,
just
other
want to
reports
be
do
clear,
answer.
just that we know, or that these are the things we are expecting there.
Yeah.
Okay,
And we should have some details on cost, did she say, or is that not the case?
No,
We
that's
need-
a separate, she's
That's a
putting out
separate-
an RFP
Yeah.
or a request for something.
but that would be purely removing the dam
That's right.
itself.
Yeah, she's using that for 30% design drawings only, not the basis of design report,
Yeah.
to get a bid estimate.
Okay. So there's not much to discuss here on this one.
No.
We just discussed it, so that was it.
What, is it worth talking about? I can't remember what Toby's question was. Do we
Yes,
have a couple minutes to talk about that?
Okay,
Whatever.
I forget what his question was.
So do I. Oh, okay. This planning team expressed some interest in learning more about what has been happening with the Acton River Street dam removal. Like whether they have run into any implementation roadblocks and what might be behind the current appearance of the site, in part to learn more about the situation there and in part to see if it could be a valuable site visit. We were thinking about reaching to someone from their conservation commission, but given the potential overlap with your work group, wanted to check in to see whether we'd be interested with speaking to them.
Our thoughts.
so is it speaking the whole group or just our subcommittee?
I think that's what he's asking. Is it worth, do we want to just talk to them as a subcommittee and then we can feed back to them if we
It would be
think
the
it's need-
subcommittee. They're trying to
Yeah.
get each subcommittee to kind of reach out. And get
Well,
answers.
Generally, it's our neighboring town that just went through this exercise. Probably a good idea to get some do's and don'ts.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is a different scenario in that I think it was like an emergency fix.
Yeah.
So, you know, like I think based on what I've read on their website, and I could be misinterpreting things, but if I get the sense that it was like we are removing the dam, and then our plans for the future will be in future budgets because this was an unexpected sort of thing. But it would be, I think it would be worthwhile, at least
Yeah.
conversation, or maybe like email, to start with email. Like if
Mhm.
we have some questions, we're gonna ask them and see if it would be then worthwhile to.
Mm.
I don't
Well,
know.
I think it would be helpful if nothing else to be able to see the site after a dam has been removed, and does it look like a mud bath or does it look like a newly emerging meadow? And you know, because to be honest, all I've got are things that I read and things that people have presented to us. I've not actually seen a newly removed dam area to really know for myself what it does look like. So
And
I
what
would find
happened,
it helpful.
to learn also what happened with the invasives and so on, is
Mhm.
what actually happened. I think that's a good idea.
Mm. One thing I have read repeatedly is that the initial recolonization of the land exposed after a dam removal is from sort of the seed memory that is in the ground. So it
Mhm.
tends to be natives. And then the danger is, of course, is that the land invasives then come in from the outside. So it's less an issue of ensuring that the drained area is populated with native plants to begin with. And it's more an issue of doing everything you can to remove the invasive plants around the edges and preventing them from populating the middle. But what that means in practice and financially, I don't know.
All right.
I think the Acton Street, yeah, it'd be great to get information from their experience. Or the Acton example on River Street. It's an easy drive if you're ever headed over to South Acton, and it's a very quiet. It's actually a one-way street now from South Acton over to Parker Street or something. But I think it's a slightly different setting because the dam removal has put this down into an old river channel, so there's a lot of exposed upland riverbank that you know, does what exposed soil will do. It kind of has grown up in a lot of smart weeds and whatnot. Slightly different setting, but it'll still be a good experience to hear any advice they have.
Okay, so the answer to Toby is on that question, yes.
So I'm gonna respond to him right now, just saying we're interested. Is that okay?
Yep.
Sounds good.
Our group is interested.
Someone here want to reach out to someone from Acton about scheduling them?
I
Okay.
thought Toby would do that.
Oh.
Isn't that what he implied?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
I thought the implication was like if we wanted to do it, we would schedule it, but
Oh,
let's
you
just see
could
what he
do
comes
that.
back with.
Yeah, exactly. I read it like they're organizing that, so.
Perfect. Love it.
But
Okay, I'm just saying,
might
please
be
let us know
wrong.
their availability, so
Yeah,
see what he
Yeah.
says.
right. So he says the planning team has interest
Yeah.
in learning about it. And so would we like to be behind it or with part of it, I think is.
He would like
I
to be.
just sent
part of
saying,
it.
let us know their availability. If he wants to, everybody involved, he'll copy everybody.
Yeah.
Just
Mhm.
us, it's just
Yeah.
us. So let's see what comes of it.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay,
Sounds good.
good. So that is, I think is ending that point of the agenda.
At this point, yeah.
So unfortunately there, we still continue to wait on the basis of design report.
Right.
So, okay, to move to the next agenda item?
I would suggest that before that we insert finding the date for us all to meet
that's fine.
next and deal with this rather
Okay.
tricky exercise that we have to do.
All right. Everyone is firing up their calendar.
Mhm.
So, what do we have in any first?
Next
I will
Wednesday
be in
night?
vacation next week. I can't.
Oh, you
I'm
can't, okay.
gone.
You can take a day off your vacation to do this, Sven. Come on.
Should I bring my wife in here?
It is gonna be a very fascinating meeting. She might really be excited for it.
Yeah.
October 2nd or 3rd?
Spreadsheets.
Second would be better for me because, well, actually the third isn't going to work.
October 2nd?
Works for me.
That should
Yeah,
work for me.
would work.
Is that a yes, Jeff?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, let's do it.
Liz, works for you?
Yep.
Yeah.
So
All
can
right.
we
can
start
do
a
it.
little bit earlier because it's gonna take us a while?
Yes,
Yep.
we need time. Where do we do it? Can we reserve a room again in the?
Yeah, the libraries are open till 8. I think the central library is open till 8. We have to be out at 7:45. I think they told
What
us.
about,
so-
is Fowler open? Because that's closer for all of us.
I think they were closed earlier. I think they close, although that was during the summer, I feel like last time.
Yeah,
so
I
they're
think in winter, I seem to remember, well, certainly I've been to presentations and things there beyond 8 in the evening.
Yeah.
10 to 6.
I would have said for that.
Interesting.
10 to 6 every day. Not gonna work. So it would be the main library. We're gonna say 5:30 to 7:30.
Not if it's the second. Sorry, I just opened up the webpage and the header is that the library is closed on October 2nd for staff training.
So Harvey Wheeler, what was the issue with Harvey Wheeler?
Yeah, we can sign on Harvey Wheeler. When I was on the West Concord Advisory Committee, you just
Okay,
coordinate with the staff there. I could go pick up a key in the afternoon.
okay. Yeah, because we are a town committee, maybe they'll let us do that. So,
Does
Can we do
5:30
6?
give us enough time or?
6 to 8 to, Liz, what's your,
Yeah, 6 would be a lot better than 5 for me. If we have
maybe
to do
6
it.
to 8, guys?
Yeah.
It works.
Sounds good.
Okay,
And
Who wants to reach out to those guys?
and do we have whatever, what do we need on equipment there? Do we have a whiteboard there or
we flip charts.
flip charts?
I have some giant sticky Post-its, like
That's good.
white, like,
Yeah.
flip,
Yeah.
easel flip it.
That's
Post-
good.
I can also print that chart I showed you, really big.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah. Okay.
can print
So
it a
giant
few times.
Post-it, some whatever, Sharpies, everyone brings something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Voting stickers. That's what we need.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good. And if we all do, thank you, Vicky, for pulling together the chart.
Mm.
And yeah, if we continue to think through
Could you,
mechanism of how we're going to assemble all this information. And Sven, if you were about to say, could you share that? I'd ask.
yeah, no, I was just like, Vicky, could you send around that chart just beforehand, that we all beforehand had the
Yep.
review, that we are not ending up time because we are discussing some sub point on the
Yeah,
chart.
yeah, it would be good if everyone can write in, especially the adverse impacts, so that that can be put away immediately and we can start to solve for that, because I think that's could take the longest amount of time, but solving for them is actually easier than identifying all of them,
Right.
so.
Yeah, so but
So-
that we all say is we go in and we know that that's the charge and we are not
Yeah,
Well,
spending
so
time.
are we suggesting that we do as homework to come up with our adverse effects?
yeah.
So, right, okay, good.
The
Of the
homework
pure
is
dam removal
making
scheme.
sure that we agree with the charge
Yeah.
as such, that there are not some kind of item missing or wording discussions around things. And
Yeah, it
we-
should just be
we're-
based on what we, the whole task force approved. So if there's some change there that I don't.
I know,
didn't-
it's just what.
Please let me know, yeah.
That we go through and everyone has
Yeah, yeah.
checked, it's the same. We
Yeah, I
just-
think maybe we should, as an agenda item, just have like 15 minutes towards like making sure we are in agreement that we have the format correct.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. And
Or
then-
if you have issues, if you can get them to me like 2 or 3 days before we meet.
Oh, that's
I
true,
would
because we can
change the
send things
chart.
one way to you with it being.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so, but I need a couple of days to get it in and then print it and to bring it, so just
Yep.
make sure it's not the day before, please.
that's
Well,
the
why don't
idea.
we give it a hard date then, Vicky, rather than say,
Yeah,
when you say September, they must be to you by before September 30th.
yeah,
So that you've got it
Yep.
on the Monday to go to the office.
yeah, so
Okay.
by September 29th, I
Yeah.
have everyone's comments.
Okay,
End of day is fine.
Perfect.
sounds like a plan. Anything else before I move on the next agenda item?
Not from me.
No?
Mhm.
Okay, so the next one is again, public input. If there is any, please raise the hand,
That would be Janet again, I suppose.
but no further input on this one.
Malcolm, that was Anna, if you're taking
Well, was it Anna?
from earlier, yeah.
Thank you. I wrote Janet,
No.
even though I knew it was Anna.
And I went for the name on the display here.
Yeah. Why are we
Okay.
letting me take the minutes when I'm
Doing a great
completely
job.
incapable of writing things down correctly?
I don't know, you did that first
Okay.
one pretty well. Okay.
With that, then I would close the meeting at 8:01 p.m. I think next time we probably will have much more work to do than today.
All right, I'm
Good.
sending you this spreadsheet right now, so you should.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Vicky. Thank you, Malcolm, for setting up a Zoom again.
That's all right. I'll send the agenda and do the same. This,
And who's scheduling Wheeler?
I am happy to do that.
okay.
And then so in the agenda, it'll say we're gonna meet at Wheeler.
Yes.
And Malcolm, I'll take care of that tomorrow, confirm with you for the agenda.
Okay,
All right, thanks all.
right,
Thank
guys.
you.
Perfect. Take care,
Bye.
everybody.
Thank you.
See you next
Bye.
time.